I'm almost there. Okay, one more page. Dispensation. This is what it says in here. Just so you know. Dispensation. An administration, ministry, or stewardship for which a person has responsibility in God's administration of salvation. And then they have verses 1 Corinthians 9:17, Ephesians 1:10, Ephesians 3:2, and Colossians 1:25. These are verses, that have the word dispensation in it in our King James Version. I will talk about that in a moment. In certain interpretation of Scripture, a period of time during which people are tested in respect to their obedience to a specific revelation of God's will. The word dispensation became prominent in biblical studies in an eschatological movement in 1830 in Scotland, based on the visions of Margaret MacDonald of the Plymouth Brethren Church. She believed that the return of Christ would be in two distinct stages. One, believers would be caught up to the Lord in the air before the days of the Antichrist. Two, a final revelation of Christ at the end of the age. This two-stage return of the Lord, unheard of before 1830, became the platform for a movement called dispensationalism. Miss MacDonald's pastor, J.N. Darby, John Nelson Darby, from 1800 to 1882, he developed the two-stage coming of Christ into a fully developed eschatology or theology. So here we have its origin. John Nelson Darby developed this doctrine of a two-stage coming of Christ into a fully developed eschatology or theology. Darby believed God set up 7 time periods called dispensations for his work among human beings. The 7th or last dispensation will be the millennial reign of Christ, Revelation chapter 20. In each dispensation, people are tested in reference to the obedience of God's will according to a specific revelation of that will. C.I. Scofield popularized the dispensational system in his study Bible of 1909. He described the 7 dispensations as 1. Innocency, the Garden of Eden. 2. Conscience, awakening of human conscience and expulsion from the garden. 3. Human government, new covenant made with Noah, bringing about human government. 4th, promise, a new covenant made with Abraham. 5th, law, acceptance of Jewish law. 6th, grace, begins with death and resurrection of Jesus. 7th, kingdom, final rule of Christ. Based on this, the Darby movement had a program of eschatology in 5 steps. The first, two-stage coming of Christ, rapture and parousia, which is a Greek word meaning coming. What's problematic here is many scriptures that speak of the coming link it together with the rapture. So rapture and parousia in Darby's view was 2 stages. Paul's view in the New Testament view is rapture and parousia the same event. I won't deal with that right now. Number 2, 7 years of tribulation on earth for those not raptured. Last 3.5 years, the time of the Antichrist. 144,000 Jews will accept Christ and become evangelists. Christ will return with the church, conclude the battle of Armageddon, and rule for 1,000 years. That's the third part. The fourth part is belief in an unconditional covenant with Israel, God now working through Israel and the church. In the millennium, national Israel will be restored. 5th, all Old Testament prophecy will be fulfilled literally. Dispensationalists see the rapture taking place in Revelation 4:1, and the rest of the book, chapters 4 through 18, dealing with the 7 years of tribulation, affording the book little significance for Christians not on earth during that time. So that's what this book had to say. It tells you its origins, gets on with it. I also had another book. I don't know what I did with it. It deals with the origins and development of dispensation and how it mainly increased across North America. Not all parts of the world are onto that teaching of dispensation. Like I said, it's relatively modern. Within the last 170 years, 180 years, this doctrine was developed. So is it apostolic? Does it originate from the apostles? Well, some will say, yeah. Well, Paul talked about a dispensation of the grace of God, or a dispensation of grace was administered unto him. Well, if you notice the Darby version, the Schofield version, was that a dispensation is a period of time where man is tested according to a certain obedience of God's will. Is that what it means? That's why I brought along a handy reference tool. Strong's exhaustive concordance of the Bible. I'm going to do a lookup on the word dispensation.